Action.
Hello, this is Ken Sipe. I'm the host for the current meeting for the community on KUDO. So let's get this started. The agenda, let me share that real quick, actually. All right, I'm sharing my whole screen, so it's probably bigger than we need it, but here's the agenda we're gonna follow through. There's not much really to the kickoff, and it's got 5 minutes here, but what we should cover is that we just released. So between our last meeting and this meeting on Friday of last week, we released 020, which kudos. Kudos to everybody. That's a really big deal. What should probably be stated as a part of that is we've refined, we use Go Releaser as our way of releasing. We've refined that process and spent the day kind of maturing that on Friday, such that any future releases should be fairly seamless and easy. Like it's a matter of tagging and then saying release. That would include all of the notes that get posted on GitHub. That would include the release of the Docker image as well, which was a question that someone in the community had asked me earlier this week. So it's unclear, how often we will do that release. My expectation, we can talk about it as a community, but my expectation is every iteration, at the end of the iteration, we would do it. But the question will become is what that version number will be. So it's a little bit different sometimes when we're doing feature slip, which is what we're doing as far as project management is concerned. And there might be a minimum viable product for a feature to be included to count it as a 030. So we'll see as we move forward as to how we want to manage that. Any questions or thoughts on that?
1.0 should always be 1.0.
We're moving towards that. I'm not sure what we'll be at by the time, we got 45 days or so that we want to build up in the process of creating some deliverables, including some of the things that we'll talk about in the agenda this week. Yeah, that's our target, of course. I was hoping Jared would be online. I don't know if anybody else has this. We might skip the next line item if he's not, or if no one has this, but I was hoping that we could get kind of an update on the CNCF. Does anybody have any understanding of where we are with that?
I think there's no update. I don't have an update.
I was in a meeting about this. I'm just checking what was. I'm not sure there's any update on dates.
Okay.
But
on dates, what do you mean?
The dates for the putting in the is this to putting in the CNCF proposal?
Yeah, yeah, it's everything. But if that's our next step, then yes. Okay. When I included this line item on the agenda, it also included, any intermediary steps that might have been necessary, like showing this off to Kelsey or wherever.
Yeah, so I can probably talk to that a little bit. Just looking at the list of folks who we have presented KUDO to: Alexis Richardson, Brendan Burns. The guy from Alibaba, who I've forgotten his name, and I think Jared was talking to Michelle Nurali. I think they have had a brief chat about it already, and we're going to do a deep dive this week.
Thank you so much for that. Why don't we dive into what we're doing now? We just did a release. For the last 2 or 3 days past that release, there's just been some refactoring and refinement. It included some document updates, some clarification, some blogs. There's been some positive traction, but we're ready to move on into a bigger, I guess, themed features, if you want to call it that. So talking with Jared prior to this meeting, our themes are defined, as we see on the agenda, as extensions to KUDO. Any feature that drives adoption, which I might include things like skeleton build outs and things like that. as well as automated registry releases. So this would be in the category of having a framework author something and getting it into the repository or the registry. So there was an expectation that we would do some grooming and that we would have a planning meeting for that. And that we would also make that public, that we want to make that part of this community as well, so people could be involved with it outside of what.
I think that's a great idea. I also think we should like add it on the official KUDO calendar so everyone can join.
Yeah, good point. In fact, let me add it to do here for Jared.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that.
Okay, great. So that's kind of the theme that we're going after. There's some grooming to do on that. We still need to schedule that, so I don't know if we'll really spend 10 minutes on it. What I was hoping we'd actually spend some time on is open PRs and KEPs. So the first one up would be KEP 8. This is the framework test harness. Let me just jump out so we are clear about what is going on here. KEP 8 is not landed. Well, let me rephrase that.
The KEP has, the PR hasn't.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks for the fix on that.
Yeah,
so
I'll have to also like give my approval. I know. So some things I have to run it again. I think there was a race condition that Justin fixed. So kudos for that. Yeah.
We try. Yeah, but yeah, if anyone wants to help review that, that would be super helpful, because I'd like to get it merged in the next couple of days so we can start integrating it and using it and writing docs and stuff.
You get my approval today.
It sounds good.
Yeah, I'll review as well today.
Appreciate that.
You know, this raises a good, I might jump to a different part in our agenda. Topic of testing came up a couple of times. I believe it was in the public space. So
sure.
We actually, as far as I can see, we have 3 different styles of testing that we should make sure that we have clear, right? One is unit test. The other is integration test. That's inside of what we are testing KUDO itself. And we'll have further discussions on how we want to organize that. But the third way, if you will, of testing or having tests is this harness, this test harness. And the expectation, my expectation is that is testing frameworks within KUDO. Is that everybody else's expectation?
Yeah, that's to test the frameworks themselves, as well as we can test KUDO with it. You know, it might, depending on whether or not it's easier to write a test that way or in Go.
And I think that was part of some of the conversation around that is we wanted to make sure that we were clear in either build tags or, like, I don't know if this test harness includes elements of build tags or a naming convention. I'm expecting that it doesn't.
Right now, it's gated behind a build tag, actually. So.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah. Okay, great. Maybe that'll come up in the reviews, and it'll be clear to me. Fantastic.
Yeah, I'll point it out and show what's happening there.
Great. Anything else to cover on this test harness? As far as you're concerned, Justin, since you're the main driver or author of the implementation for KEP 8, do you feel like it's ready to land?
Yeah, I think so. There's some iterations I want to do on it, but obviously the PR is already so huge. I didn't want to keep expanding on it.
Smart.
Yeah. So, and then I need to write some docs and stuff so users can actually understand what's going on.
Yeah, that would be great.
But yeah, that all I wanted to do after we merge the PR. That way I'm not overloading everyone and myself.
We should get a framework developer to actually go through and start making tests for Flink or Kafka or Zookeeper.
Yeah.
I know there were some basic tests in there, Justin, but I like it when other people start playing with it. And I think that would be a good first, not test, but use case and get some other eyes. It's
and
PRs
that would
hard.
The findings.
Yeah, that would be super helpful.
Oh, sorry, Justin. Go ahead.
I just said that would be super helpful.
Yeah, and what I wanted to add, probably Matt, that would be also, I think, a great topic for a blog post, how to write tests for frameworks, maybe a getting started guide. What do you think?
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
Okay.
Can we capture that somewhere in the minutes?
Oh, yeah. Perfect.
Getting started. Interesting. Okay. Is that sufficient?
Looks good.
Great. Okay. So the next KEP, Jared's not here to talk about. Anybody have thoughts on this diagnostics template? This is actually a KEP to be landed.
Can you go real quick back and show what the comment that I had? I don't know if that was been addressed. Yeah, that was not replacing the issue template folder and the bug. It was an extension essentially to the bug report one, or is this KEP just then more concreter, or what is? That would be probably the question that I would have to Jared. But anyone else?
You know what? Now that I've reviewed it, over this last couple seconds, I think there was. I think the genesis of this KEP was there was some experiences on call for members of the KUDO team and the orchestration teams within Mesosphere, where there was like this minimum required information in order to diagnose or understand the problem set well enough to actually execute on it. So I think this was designed to be a template of, well, if you're going to create an issue, here's the minimum things that you need to supply in order to move forward or to receive help, if you will. So this has been outstanding for a while. I should probably take a look at this and discuss how we want to manage this.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, it got the looks good from Toby. So probably have to just have like Jared talk about it real quick and see what he wants to do with this KEP.
Okay. So as far as any questions on KEPs, any new KEPs to talk about, or anything, any thoughts that people want to lay out there that should be addressed by a KEP? All right, hearing none. We'll move over to open poll requests, which why don't we get specific? There are several out there that are kind of just cleanup or docs or already been addressed by KEPs. These are ones that are not exactly that we haven't addressed yet. So the first is the bundle command. I guess we're needing Jared again. He's the one that's working on this. I'm not sure. Does anybody know what we should be doing here?
Tom and Elena and Jared, I think, had earlier today a meeting maybe for this or talked about it. Tom, do you have maybe an update there? Sorry, I didn't want to put you on the spot, but I think...
We didn't actually sit down and talk. Jared was busy.
All right, okay.
About the CLI Helm into bundle. I think that's you, Tom.
It is, yes. So I think we're in a holding pattern now. There's a couple things that are needed before I want to merge that in. And one of them is the issues that Jared just created regarding a new templating engine for Helm. And the point is that there are Helm-specific things that go into Helm charts. And some of these are these specialized function calls that get embedded into the Go templates. But also there's other file types that are not considered by the KUDO template engine. So our concept for getting Helm charts working in KUDO was not to replace the functions and functionality inside of all Helm charts with KUDO compatible functions, because we felt like that was a very difficult process, and then reproducing a lot of the code and functionality that has already been developed by the Helm community, and we should leverage that rather than try to duplicate that. So in these situations where the templates are Helm specific, we want to provide a Helm templating engine as the processing rather than the KUDO templating engine. So Jared was working on creating an interface that would allow for a selection by the framework at the framework level to say my templates are of type KUDO or of type Helm or of type Q or of type webhook, and kind of provide this framework level differentiation. And then from there, once you extend the Helm chart, you can provide your own templating engine for your layer. So your extensions templates would have either Helm or KUDO or Q. And then when you try to render a step that comes from a template inside one of the base frameworks, you'd be able to leverage the internal frameworks templating engine there. So you'd be able to kind of combine these two different languages in a multi-layer approach. So we're waiting to merge all that stuff in before we actually start this, but this PR that I have going is going to be the wrap up of that, where with a single call, we're going to be able to create a framework, a package, a framework developers folder structure that will represent the Helm chart and contain all the appropriate information from the KUDO side of things to be able to process that Helm chart in KUDO.
Yeah. So I'm updating the doc now. It's waiting specifically on what to land in order to move forward.
All the things.
There
were several issues that Jared created this morning regarding, let's see.
Okay, so we need KUDO to advance, and we need extensions.
335 and 336 were the issues that need to get resolved before I merge that in. And the reason is that Helm charts, as they exist, won't necessarily be able to be rendered by Sprig, because there are extra functions that get defined in Helm that are not present in core Sprig. And some of those frameworks use them. For frameworks that don't use them, I believe we should be able to render those. We could merge this and have some frameworks fail, but I didn't want to do that and have some inconsistencies in how Helm is used, and have someone try to use it and say, it doesn't work with my Helm chart. This thing doesn't work. I would rather wait till we can have more Helm charts usable and expect that all of them are usable unless we find some exceptions.
Makes sense. Thanks for helping us go through that. It's understanding that. Let's see here. Next pull request that's open is also you. Tom, you want to continue the conversation on documentation for controller responsibilities and dynamic versions? You're muted. We don't have to.
This is from a while ago. I don't know how much is still relevant.
Okay, so we need to check its relevancy.
Yeah, there was one issue that someone opened recently about frameworks and framework versions being currently namespaced and not cluster scoped, that it looks like I had changed in this particular PR. Oh, this one merges into Jared's dynamic CRDs. This is not getting pulled into master. these were proposals I was making to Jared about how we could do dynamic CRDs a little differently.
Okay, so should we close this pull request then? I'm not saying delete the branch. I'm saying should we close the pull request, or is this adding value to something that's still being worked on?
I don't know how much Jared is actually working on that dynamic CRD branch in terms of testing that functionality. I expect us to use it when we start implementing that as a lessons learned. So I would leave that open to Jared and ask him whether he wants to accept it as is or not, but he should make a determination on that. And I'm fine either way, whether we keep the branch, whether we delete the branch, whether we remove the branch. I was just helping that conversation and lessons learned.
Good enough. Great. I don't even know if we need to dive into this because it'll get pretty low level, but there's another outstanding open pull request on the engine refactor. That is work being done by Tyrone, and actually a number of people have been jumping on it. So what that generally is the code generated, or the code layout and structure was initially built by Cube Builder, and it is being refactored and ownership is being taken to make it more testable, as well as probably easier to manage, maintain, and understand. So any thoughts or questions around that? No. All right. There was a conversation earlier today that we should talk about code ownership. If I jump there real quick, you'll see that we do have code owners, that these code owners are listed in our GitHub. They have some, the way these are kind of identified, if you go into a pull request, you'll see, can I find one? There we go. If you have someone with a badge, they're a code owner within that domain that pull request is associated with. And I think the question or concern, and there's more to it than that, right? There's their expectation that they're going to be probably the ones merging it, probably definitely need at least one code owner to merge, to have approved it to merge it. The question is should we be fanning this out to more people? We definitely have more people involved, and what should that look like? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's one way is those are pretty high level. Maybe we can even break it down to smaller pieces. I saw a lot of like PRs and activity flourishing over the last couple of weeks. Elena is, for instance, one person that could be also added there for the CLI, for instance. Right now it's just you and me, Ken. But just asking in general if we can add those people to the project as code owner. And that actually begs the question also, like, too many cooks in the kitchen. If we have a process and how we think about how many people should actually be code owners, and if we're doing us a favor right now, if the project is considerably smaller, if we actually need this, or that's also something probably that we should discuss or get some guidance or at least agree on something.
Yeah, that's a good
point.
I
think Justin's PR should add his name to the packages that he's developing. I think that makes a lot of sense.
I see. Yes, there's a lot of like technical knowledge specifically for the testing. So,
Justin, does that make sense to you? I want your explicit. Yeah, okay. Great. Anything else missing? Maybe if Tyrone is doing a lot of work in the engine, maybe adding him to that would make sense as well. As far as the higher level conversation is concerned, it's a good point, Fabian. I don't know. I don't see it as a burden, and I say that because currently we don't have any defined rigidity associated with this. It's something that it's a kind of a gentleman's agreement at this point, as far as I see it. We don't have any enforcement. And because of that, I don't think there's too much risk in having, of course, if all of our names are on all of the things, I don't know if it helps either, right? It doesn't really add the value of knowing who to turn to. Anyway, that's my thoughts.
Yeah.
Also, I would also challenge whether Toby is the one we want to keep on our website. I don't know how active he'll be.
I'll let him know you said that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying remove him. I'm saying we might want one more.
I think Jared wanted to work also to switch from our hosted Netlify solution with KUDO to Nano C, or what that is called, just because it's easier for the templating and so forth. But that would be a great update too. But I don't know what the last status is.
I'll just jump to it, and we'll jump back hopefully. But there is an issue that was one of the next items on the agenda was to mention that we would be moving away from Hugo and into, was it Nano C? I'm not sure how do you pronounce that?
Yeah.
And this is, Jared's not here to discuss it. I trust that he has experience with this, and it's lighter weight is what I'm understanding.
So I think if he's proposing architecture change, he's assuming ownership of that
Right.
part of the code base.
Agreed.
Which is why I sometimes don't comment on things, because it's
Congrats, Jared.
you can have that.
Now we know. Tom, say something. Okay, any more conversation around code owners? At this point, it seems like we'll add a few more into appropriate places. Still looking for volunteers if people feel like they want to own a piece of it. Those who have not voiced their opinions. Okay, not hearing any. Testing, we mentioned this just a tad, but there's been at least a couple of conversations over the last couple of days about how we want to manage this. Specifically, this is a conversation around unit and integration testing and the new test framework or test harness that has been created. So there are 3 different concepts. The way I understand the conversation landed is that we would organize this with unit test. We would have unit test files with build tags, and we would have a separate organization for integration. With their own build tags, and that the difference really is that, if you're not familiar, is that the integration tasks require integration to something that maybe like a server or a website or things like that, and they're longer startup or build up and longer running usually. And unit tests are expected to be, these are mocks and units, and they are small, fast, and can run without any connectivity whatsoever. That's kind of where my thinking is on it. Does anybody want to add to that?
Can you define connectivity?
For unit tests, in which we are also expecting to have this as our default. In other words, if you say go test, this is what runs. But that I'm expecting to be in an airplane or on a submarine, and I can run tests and validate that all the things that are expected to have unit tests will run and pass. Now, that's not to say, that the edge cases to that would be, is there a required amount of cached things? But I would expect that there's limited needs for that, and that but I'm also not against mocks being used there. So mocks to me is a fine way of ensuring behavior that is usually very fast in its execution.
And so connectivity would be connected then to a more long-running cluster, or?
Yeah, we'll have to talk more about that. My expectation is, well, let's go through it. For when we work on DCOS, we have integration tests on Marathon, let's say, and within Marathon, the integration test it's a huge build out of things. It's setting up Mesos, it's setting up agents, it takes a while to just set up, and then you're running it. And there's no connectivity needed for that either. It just takes a long time. We also have something called system integration tests, and those are the creation of a whole cluster and the execution of that test within that cluster, and it's probably as close to real world as you can get. It's literally hosted on a cloud. It's literally a real cluster. There's still some mocking in our integration tests. So that's what my experience has been. I share it only because to set the bar of what I mean when I say these words. And I was seeing our test harness more as a system integration test tool. I don't know if we want to lock it into that. I'm hearing that at least Justin seemed more open to using it for more things than that. I'd have to see what that looks like.
So yeah, if we did use it for more things, I would still consider those integration tests, because it's going to start up the harness, it's going to start up KUDO, it's going to start an etcd and Cube API server, and then do a bunch of things there. So that's still a pretty involved test and takes about 5 seconds for it to start up. So I would consider that still an integration test, even if it's not like, starting containers and whatnot.
I don't know how much it means, but the Kuba Builder default testing framework that gets generated by the skeleton does stand up an API server by default.
I think that's what we're using.
Yeah, that's what it's using.
Yeah. So not saying that that's the right thing, but their default tests would use a brand new cluster that it stands up locally inside your Docker image based on how we have it in the make test call, but could also stand up locally.
Yeah, it doesn't violate the being able to do it on an airplane, but I think it still would count as an integration test given how much is going on.
Great. Yeah, I should point out that there's probably room for refinement here. And what I really want to say is we've kind of, even though we had some conversation and we should continue this conversation, the decision hasn't necessarily, we're here to make that decision. But we're also, the last conversation I remember being a part of, it was, what was communicated was let's hold off on this until we actually need it. In other words, we don't have any integration tests right now. They don't exist. So the first person to get there, that's when we'll probably do the review process, or through that review process, say, hey, wait a minute, we need a standard here. But I still feel like it's a good idea to have it in a common mental model as to what we're expecting. And the number one thing is that we're not going to combine unit tests and integration tests in the same test files. They're going to be managed separately. They're going to be executed separately. Does everybody have the same mental model or disagrees with that in any way? Or?
Yeah, do you want me to try to capture this conversation as a cap?
Actually, that's probably a brilliant idea.
There should be a testing kit that you can probably update a little bit.
Sounds good.
The one worry I have about mocks is that there's a whole new set of code that needs to be maintained and kept. And I know that can be problematic, especially if there ends up being drift between what actual Kubernetes does and what the mocks pretend like Kubernetes would do. So I would want some sort of sanity check, maybe a nightly job on master that runs against a real server, rather than just the short tests.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Actually, that leads us into what, at some point we'll have to have the discussion of what do we want within our CI process. When we actually merge into master, how often do we test and what test does it run, or set of tests does it run? I'm expecting that to run against Kubernetes.
Yeah, I was thinking we could run against several different environments. You know, we could run against like a kind cluster, we could run against GKE, etc. So, yeah, and you know, we can do that for either test coverage or performance reasons.
Yes, which leads us probably to the comment. You know, that's a great segue into, we had an issue where we actually weren't running tests on our pull request. So things were being merged in, and that broke master essentially. So does anybody remember if that was resolved?
I think Elena set it up so that we're running the tests now.
I thought that was true too. Okay.
Wasn't it just ignoring the outputs of the test? Isn't that better? See, we're running the tests.
I don't know.
I don't recall. I do know it was failing properly if you didn't format it correctly, but apparently, you know, asserting something was not happening. Okay, so that was longer than 5 minutes, but we've had that was great conversation. The summary of this, I think, is that we're starting the conversation, we're continuing the conversation really in testing and what we mean, and I heard Justin will modify KEP 8.
Yeah, I'll try to capture basically what tests we're going to run when and where in that KEP and how.
Okay, great. I think that's enough to. Okay, we've already talked about the website change. I'm not sure when that'll happen. There's an issue out for it. I think Jared knows the most about it. We should just expect it. The driver there is that it's, I think there's a desire to control some of the layout, and Jared got pretty, it was challenging to learn a whole templating engine when it should be something fairly simple. So. And I'm in full agreement. So let's just use whatever makes the most sense. Community. Nick, you want to grab it?
Yo. Yeah, sure. So the tracker spreadsheet that we've got on the go, the KUDO community submission spreadsheet, I can see Matt's been hard at work as well, updating it with a variety of events, and the status on there should be correct as of today. So there's a slew of talks that we have had accepted across various meetups. Obviously, me and Matt are both based in Europe, or based in the UK specifically. So a lot of the meetups that are on there are obviously EU-centric. I can see yourself, Ken. You're clearly the winner with the talk title. You've obviously got a few talks on the go. So yeah, that's basically where we're at. I don't know if people want. I know we've given. Well, Matt's given at least one talk so far, so there's some information up there about that. That was at the.
Yeah, I mean, I can give you the big ticket numbers. I mean, we had 28 meetups that we wanted to that were targets in EMEA, and that's based on number of members, but generally the CNCF meetups. Of those, our original goal was 7 with a stretch goal of 14. And we've now, I think, got 10 accepted and another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 looking likely. So we'll get to 19, 20 fairly soon.
Yeah.
And we've got a bunch of stuff that we've reached out to folks and are waiting to hear back from them.
I know really Jörg was after an update specifically on KubeCon as well. Have you got any updates on that, Matt?
Yeah, so I've got a submitted KUDO talk for KubeCon. Yeah, and I don't know who else has talks they want to submit. Mine's like a intro one.
I think the call for papers is closing. Okay, we still got a month. July 12th.
And I actually gave a KUDO talk in Berlin 3 3 weeks ago. So there's the link to the slides and the video are in that spreadsheet if anybody's interested. So please throw shade, correct my poor technical understanding, or
or feel free to point out that it's already woefully out of date because the project's moved on significantly.
Yeah, probably is. Yeah.
You know, we awesome job, guys. That's really fantastic. In fact, we should put the deadline here.
So, Ken, just one other point in that our intention is we have a similar target set for the US, and we're starting to work through contacting those meetups in the US now. Obviously, it's slightly more difficult. You know, neither me or Nick are likely to be traveling to the US to do meetups. I know there are some folks in the SE organization at Mesosphere who want to be able to do stuff like that. So we'll rely on them and on folks from the dev team who are in the US as well.
Yeah, that's great. I always, so it's a fun time giving some presentations, so I'm always up for it. And hopefully we have some others that will join us.
Yeah, I'd be interested in seeing your material as well, Ken, and seeing whether we can, I can steal your slides, basically.
Yeah, you know, well, talking around that, I see two general approaches at giving this kind of talk, right? One approach is to leave Mesos completely out and just talk about, you know, the need for operators, that it was uncovered and valued, and then driving from there to, hey, this takes a lot of code, and here's KUDO. I probably was going to take a slightly different angle, or at least add a thread of thought that would interweave with that thought, and adding in the fact that, you know, that I don't ever want to get into a long conversation around Mesos, but mentioning that we have deep experience in understanding how an operator works and what it does and how it does what it does.
Yeah, so I mean, my conference talk, which is clearly longer than I would do at a meetup, although it's, you know, effectively the same overarching story, is basically those two threads that you've just described there. So there is the, you know, there's the bit about why do you need operators, so talking about stateless versus stateful, and then there's a bit in there about Mesos and frameworks and all that kind of stuff, where those concepts have kind of come out of, and then, you know, an overview of what KUDO is and how it works. Probably for a meetup talk, I would cut the Mesos stuff right down to the minimum. Because I don't think you can cover the distance in the time in a 20-minute meetup talk. But in a 30, 40-minute conference talk, you know, you've got a bit more space to give that context. So yeah, and that's exactly what my slide deck does. So feel free to, if you want to steal any of my stuff as well, feel free. Perfect.
I actually might, again, I haven't organized it yet, but I also might add in, I like to talk a little bit more about DevOps, and, you know, Docker was this life-changing things for dev, and part of that life-changing, there are at least two angles to the life-changing event for dev, right? One is if I need to code up against Redis, all I need to do is say Docker run Redis. Like that's it. Like I don't look at a wiki anymore. I don't have to set up my machine. I just say run. There's an element of that, or a need of that, for an operator as well in the whole DevOps story. And so when you want to reduce the number of things that ops has to worry about, when you have a wiki that tells you, here's a list of things that you need to do to upgrade from Cassandra 222 to 225, I don't have to follow that. I have it codified. This is the same life-changing event, but for ops. Right?
Yeah.
So that might be closer to the story I'll tell, but we'll see. Because I have a couple of jokes I like to throw in about DevOps. So. Okay. Great.
Just quickly on that subject as well, because I wanted to actually probably pick Tom brain at some point in the future. So he chucked in a few good ideas during last week's meeting with regards to subjects and things to talk about. And I really like quite a few of those suggestions. I like being able to tell a bit of a story as to, you know, exactly what it was about this tool that helped you to solve or add some business value. But I appreciate that KUDO's probably not quite at that point yet to be able to tell that story. So.
Yeah, those are always the talks that mean the most to me, / resonate with me the most. You know, how do I solve my day-to-day better so I can go do more interesting, fun, productive things?
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, let's carry on sharing all the material that we create.
Yeah.
You know, in this community, and we can iterate and take stuff from each of them and build a kind of you know, best library of this stuff out of everybody's stuff.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Totally. Well, I don't know if it's last or not, but next topic within that subject area of conferences and community. Are there any, is there any collateral that we can share? Not slides. Are there any like stickers or shirts or things that are KUDO oriented that we can?
Yeah, so I'm on this right now. I have stickers in EMEA. I'll get stickers in the US. I can actually show you, folks, if you give me 1 second to tear this package open. So, see those bad boys?
Those look massive.
They are massive. So I have these, and I also have budget to get T-shirts done, both for the. Well, I'm saying I have budget. I did have, I thought we had this approved. I need to go back again and double check with marketing on the shirts. But I had numbers to get like 300 shirts for EMEA and 500 shirts or something for the US to do this program with. But now we seem to be slightly going back around it again.
I hear there were some pretty cool and exclusive T-shirts made already.
Oh, I should go grab mine.
Yeah, why are you not wearing it?
Yeah, today would be the day to wear it. I wear it, you know, often. So since receiving it,
I'm still waiting for mine. So,
did you not get one, Tom?
Not yet.
Matthias is doing some more now. He pinged me that he was getting some done.
Yeah, I admired him as well. He did say it's on his to-do list. And I said, I hope it's near the top of his to-do list.
So yeah, as soon as I have swag stock for meetups and stuff, I will let you folks know in this meeting, and we'll work out some way of distributing that.
Awesome. Well, that was a pretty full meeting. It lasted for 54 minutes or so. That's a pretty lengthy one. Yeah, I thought it was fruitful. It could have been, we could have added some things in from Jared, but I think we got through a lot. Is there anything remaining that we should talk about?
We should find the host for the next meeting, right?
So that was the next thing I was going to do.
Right.
So the next meeting is set up for June 20th, which is next Thursday. And do we have any volunteers for hosting?
I can do it.
Awesome.
I'll be on holiday, so apologies in advance.
We'll make sure to assign the following week to you.
Perfect.
I think I'm on holiday the following week as well, so maybe the week after that.
One of these days.
All right. Well, that's a wrap. Thanks everyone for showing up.
Thank you for hosting, Ken. Awesome job.
Yeah, cheers, Ken.
See you later.
Thanks all.
Bye.